Radical Review Part 2. We're going to finish up the last two sections on our worksheet, which is going to be on multiplying and dividing. So let's get started with multiplying. So there's just a few things to remember, and I actually think multiplying is the easiest one to do. So this is the third section, like I said. So to multiply, all you have to do is multiply the outside numbers. So remember when we added the outside numbers. So now multiplying, you will multiply the outside numbers. And then you actually, instead of leaving the inside numbers alone, you're also going to multiply the inside of the radical. And then the last thing is you want to make sure that you simplify. And when I say simplify, I mean break it down by doing the factor tree. So let's take a look at an example. And we'll go with 3 square root of 5 times 4 square root of 8. So again, according to the directions, you want to multiply the outside numbers. So our outside numbers are 3 and 4. So when you multiply those together, you get 12. And then the inside numbers are 5 and 8. And so when you multiply them, you get the square root of 40. So it's real easy. Multiply insides, multiply outsides. Then the last step is you want to make sure that you simplify and it's in the smallest form. So if we do a factor tree here, we get, we'll go 4 and 10. And then you got 5 and 2 and 2 and 2. So we can break out one pair of 2's. And remember, when you break them out, there's an outside number here. So we need to multiply the 12 times 2 to give us 24. And the 5 and the 2 are left here. So we multiply those together to get 24 square root of 10. Alright, now I'm going to go from 0 to 100 real quick. And we're going to do one that's a little more complicated, because that's too easy. That's baby stuff. Let's get to some grown folk stuff. So what if you saw a problem that looked like this? Square root of 3 plus 4 times 2 square root of 3 minus 5. Does this look familiar at all? Hopefully you are thinking to yourself, duh, Miss Lewinsky, this is foiling. You are exactly correct. We need to FOIL this. So in case you forgot, first, outer, inner, last, I'll go slowly. So the square root of 3 is going to be distributed into this parenthesis times 2 square root of 3. So you only have one outside number, so that'll be 2, and then times the square root of 9, because 3 times 3 gives you 9. Then you're going to take the square root of 3 and multiply it by the negative 5. Now, neither one of those are the same kinds of numbers, so you're just going to put the 5 on the outside of the radical as 5 square root of 3. Then we also need to do the 4, and so we'll distribute the 4 into 2 square root of 3. That will give us 8 square root of 3. And then 4 times negative 5 will give us negative 20. Now, what could I combine together? These two match right here because they're both the square root of 3. So add negative 5 plus 8, and that'll give me 3 square root of 3. Now the 2 square root of 9, hopefully you're saying to yourself, the square root of 9 is actually 3, right, if we break her down. So 2 times 3 is going to give me 6. So I have 6 plus 3 square root of 3 minus 20. And then I can add the 6 and the negative 20 together and get a final answer of 3 square root of 3 minus 14. Now that's some grown folks business right there. Hopefully you're not saying to yourself, boy, this is a force. You're saying, I'm really smart because I get this, and this is a difficult multiplying problem. Alright, last but not least, let's go to our last one, which is dividing. Now, when you're doing dividing, fourth type, there is one rule, and that is you cannot have a radical on the bottom of a fraction. That is a no-no. So you may have remembered back in the day we called this rationalizing the denominator. I'm not going to require you know that, but just so you're aware that there is a special name for it. So if you see something like, let's say 4 divided by the square root of 5. This is not correct because that square root of 5 cannot be in the bottom of the fraction. That's illegal. We need to make it happy. and move it to the top. So the only way to do that is we need to get rid of the square root of 5. So the easiest way to get rid of it, I don't know if you noticed on the last slide, but when you multiplied, I'll show you right here, when you multiplied the square root of 3 times the square root of 3, you ended up getting the square root of 9, which ended up canceling the square root and turning it into a whole number. So that's what we want to do on the bottom here, is we want to multiply it by itself. If we multiply it by itself, it ends up being the square root of 25, which what's the square root of 25? 5. So that's how we can get rid of this, is to multiply by itself. Now this is just like an equation though, so if you multiply the bottom of the fraction by square root of 5, you also have to multiply the top of the fraction by square root of 5. So 4 times square root of 5 is just 4 square root of 5. Now here's another rule, that this outside 5 that's on the bottom here is not the same as the inside 5 here in the radical. 5 in the radical is in jail. It is in prison. It cannot break out unless there's another 5 inside with it. This 5 is a whole number. It's happy. So you cannot cancel these out. I just want to repeat that. You cannot cancel those out. Okay, last one. Now again, 0 to 100. This is a grown folks problem. I hope you're ready. So the second example is, what if you see something as 3 over 1 plus the square root of 2? This is really throwing it back. Now this is killing me down here because this fraction on the bottom is not just a single radical. It's 1 plus the square root of 2. So I know you probably forgot this, but how you get rid of this is you multiply it by the opposite, because this is a binomial. And if we just multiply by the square root of 2, you would end up distributing, and you would get square root of 2 plus square root of 4, which is 2, but you still have a radical here. So the only way to do it is this. I'm going to back the truck up here. Okay, so now to get rid of this, what you want to do is you multiply by the opposite. What? So now what you've done is you created a new FOIL problem. Whoop, whoop. So we're going to FOIL this bad boy real quick. So 1 times 1 is going to give me 1. 1 times negative square root of 2 is still negative square root of 2. Square root of 2 times 1 is just square root of 2. And then square root of 2 times negative square root of 2 is going to be negative square root of 4. Now look what happens right here. When I take negative 2 plus positive square root of 2, that cancels out. So that's why we do the opposite, because it's going to make the radical cancel. And we're left with a 1 here on the outside minus square root of 4, which is 2, and we get a negative 1. So all that freaking work, and we end up with a negative 1 on the bottom of the fraction. Remember, you have to do the same thing at the top, so we also have to multiply the top by 1 minus the square root of 2. Now this is going to be a distributing problem because there's only one thing over here. So we'll go 3 times 1, which is 3, and then 3 times negative square root of 2, which is negative 3 square root of 2. And there you have it. We are all finished with reviewing of radicals. I know you're super excited to get started, so why don't you go ahead and finish the last portion of your worksheet.